focusing is a much better response than fear. Grace and peace, everybody. Welcome to Sabbath School Study Group. My name is Chris Bailey. We're wrapping up this 5-part series, taking a look at managing in tough times. Putting God first, which is kind of ironic because this is the last study of the series, is exactly the final principle that we want to make sure we remember. Keeping and putting God first. When we look at these Bible stories and narratives when people have a crisis, it's amazing to see how no matter their position, when we see overcomers turning to God for help, how faithful he is. He never says, oh, you're this, oh, you that, you should have that. He does what he plans to do because he loves us. In this case, we're actually going to look at a king in a crisis and how he shows by focusing and not staying in his fear, but focusing on God. He was actually able to overcome, work through that fear, and see the Lord honor his faith. It starts in 2 Chronicles 20 verse 2 where it says, there came some that told Jehoshaphat, this is the king, there cometh a great multitude against thee from beyond the sea on this side Syria. And behold, they be in Hazazontamar, which is En Gedi. And Jehoshaphat feared and set himself to seek the Lord, and proclaimed a fast throughout all Judah. This is so important to see because oftentimes we look at fasting as the means or the way to turn God's will to ours, just like we do with prayer. We can mistake and misuse prayer to think that prayer is about changing God, but in actuality, prayer is about changing us. And the true fast in a time of crisis, it comes on the result of not fear, but a pursuit for focus. I don't even have time to eat because I'm focusing right now on making sure that I am in line with God and his plan. Because right now, I got an enemy coming at me this way. And I need to make sure that I'm standing right between God so they run into him before they get to me. That's the real intent and mindset of godly fasting, biblical fasting, not fasting for reward. So now, as Jehoshaphat and the people turn to God, we pick it up in verse 5 where Jehoshaphat now stands in the congregation of Judah and Jerusalem in the house of the Lord before the new court. And he said, O Lord, here's his prayer, God of our fathers, art not thou God in heaven? And rulest not thou over all the kingdoms of the heathen? And in thine hand is there not power and might so that none is able to withstand thee? Art not thou our God, who didst drive out the inhabitants of this land before thy people Israel, and gavest it to the seed of Abraham, thy friend forever? Man, talk about name dropping. Talking about trying to make sure, don't you know this? Don't you know that person? Don't you remember what you said? He's pulling all of God's highlight moments in front of him. He's taking his highlight reel and saying, God, do you remember this? You remember you said that? You remember him? Remember how he was close to you? He's putting it all up in front of God's face because clearly he could not present this highlight reel. He could not present this picture if it was not playing in his mind. The fasting and prayer cleared the clutter so that he could say, wait. I'm focusing on my fear right now. I need to focus on my Father. And I do that by manifesting faith in my Father. And so he's reminding Israel, he's reminding Jerusalem, and he's reminding God, who never forgot, this is who you are. So don't tell me they weren't gassed up. They weren't fueled up and spiritually fed up and filled like, whoa, that's right. This is who he is. So that's who we are in him. So now Jehoshaphat goes, right? And here in verse 18, he's praying again. But look at him. He bowed his head with his face to the ground. And all Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem fell before the Lord. They followed him, worshiping the Lord. Verse 19, and the Levites of the children of the Kohathites and of the children of the Korhites stood up to praise the Lord God of Israel with a loud voice on high. And they rose early in the morning and went forth into the wilderness of Tekoa. And as they went forth, Jehoshaphat stood and said, hear me, O Judah, and ye inhabitants of Jerusalem. Believe in the Lord your God. Focus. So shall ye be established. Believe his prophets. So shall ye prosper. So grateful for the prophetic gift. So grateful that God is about giving messages to his people so they don't miss on his purpose. And I believe and I'm grateful for the prophetic ministry of Ellen G. White. And I'm looking forward to, and I'm grateful for, God even manifesting himself and speaking through individuals to this day. And I pray even to this moment, because God is trying to affirm our faith in him. Jehoshaphat, but raising up God's record before him, that galvanized the people. And when they saw where he was looking, as I said, when he bowed, that they bowed, where he was looking, that's where they looked. That's the power of the prophetic gift. The true prophetic gift, the true prophet of God, points us to God, not to themselves. They are pointing to the word to drive us deeper. They're basically the wedge to drive us in deeper into trusting what God has done, so we know what he's going to do. By the way, incidentally, when this happened, they were praising the Lord. And while they were praising the Lord said, I got this. He took the other hand out. He was high-fiving his people who were praising him. He took the other hand, set ambushments against them, and the enemy just destroyed themselves. They didn't have to. Brothers and sisters, this is the kind of God that we had back in 2 Chronicles. And just because the time or the circumstances or the situation may seem deeper, it's not deeper than God. The enemy turns up his caliber of attack, but all God does is just turn up his caliber of atonement. He just turns up his salvation. God is turned up way more than the enemy could ever be. So don't ever miss that. So even when we talk about the time of trouble such as never was, then what we're looking really towards is a time of triumph such as there never was. A time of deliverance as such as there never was. You can't beat God's giving, so don't think, and please let's not get twisted to think that the devil can beat God's doing. Man, I should say, glory. Lord, you are good. Don't forget it. Jehoshaphat, Israel, Judah remembered it then. Don't forget it today.